Hello everybody and welcome to today's vlog. Now this is so far removed from anything I have ever done before, but I just feel it is really important after the news of the passing of Liam Payne and all of the news articles that I've seen that are just incorrect. Now before I start, I want to say I am not monetized. I do not make any money at all from being on YouTube. I will not financially benefit from making this video. From my point of view, this is almost like seeing bullies in the school playground that are just going out after individuals and just relentlessly bringing them into this sphere of untruths that the family, friends, fans and also son of the late Liam Payne have to sort of live with for the rest of their lives. And it just doesn't seem fair that there are so many inaccuracies out there. So to give you an idea, my background over 20 years ago was in the media. I have worked for a local news station and I have also done 4 years at university studying the media. I want to get that across. It's really important because the only news outlets that I have got information from are completely reputable. They use only solid sources and they would not have put that information if it wasn't out there as correct in the first place. Now there's so much that I want to go through that I have made a little list with some notes on because I don't want to miss anything out, because everything that's here is really important to what I want to get across, which is first and foremost the truth about what happened to Liam Payne. And I just want all of this victim blaming to absolutely stop. The people that I see that are the victims in this, there is a past girlfriend, a current girlfriend who are getting horrific press, and the deceased himself whose name is being trolled absolutely through the mud, and it just doesn't seem right. So here goes. My first point is this gentleman clearly suffered from mental health issues, including addiction, which we now know. We're a lot better educated about this. We know that addiction is an illness. He put himself into the Priory in England in July, but unfortunately only lasted for 2 days before he did then go on to discharge himself. Now why this is important, because it just shows just a few months ago that he was experiencing a really difficult, tough time. Off the back of that, his friends, his family and people close to him have reported very disturbing behaviours. One of which was by his direct people that look after him on a day-to-day basis. And unfortunately, news has come out that it looks like he was driving under the influence. Don't know how many times. It might have been once, it might have been several times. That information is not clear. However, what is clear is that his car keys were actually taken away from him and he just went out and bought another car. Again, the information around that is a little bit sketchy, but that has come directly from somebody close to him from his camp. So that just goes to show the state of mind that he was in the months build up. Obviously then I can go on to the ex-girlfriend, Maya Henry. So this is an awful story. Obviously breakups end, there's usually bitterness, there's usually a story in the press. You know, you can't be this kind of famous without it being out there and people sort of having their own spin on everything that happened. How Maya dealt with this is she actually wrote a book. Now I'm going to reference this in a similarity to Baby Reindeer because the book is based on reality, but she's changed the names so it's not real. So she can get away with saying it, but it is actually about Liam, but it's not. That is very confusing. Ultimately, it seems to be based upon events that she's experienced, and the person that is the main person in her book, and I'm not going to give it more credit on here than what it needs, happens to be a pop star who then goes on to throw himself off a balcony, which is tragic. It's awful. The reason that I'm mentioning this lady is because in the weeks build up to his death, there was an awful lot of speculation about this book coming out. During this speculation, it seems really quite reasonable that Liam Payne himself has then tried to contact Maya and her mum. When she's blocked him, he's then made other requests on other social media forums. I'm not saying that it was right. It sounds exceptionally toxic on both sides. I mean, really toxic as far as relationships go. But was he wrong in wanting to contact her about the content of her book, knowing that he's potentially the person that is the one throwing himself off the balcony in the book? It just seems to fit to me that the timing that he's, going to her in what she classes as stalking, and again, I don't know, I wasn't there, it all coincides with the release of this book. He's clearly going through a bad time, which we've already established. He's got addiction problems, which have already been established by his short stint in rehab, and he's about to probably have his reputation ruined. You would 100% under those circumstances want to talk to the people involved with ending your reputation. So I can kind of see this from all angles. I am not condoning what he did. I'm also not condoning what she did. Now here's the other thing. She has a right to discuss things that have happened to her, as he has a right to then dispute that turn of events. I think it was just two very strong characters that have come together, and it has just caused so much toxicity that obviously the book came out of it, and this then later I suppose request to the court to have him stopped, which is quite brutal, but she did what she did. What I can say is, in the interviews that I've seen, one of the things that I'm really disappointed with is that she puts the full weight of responsibility, 100% of the weight of responsibility, on Liam Payne's shoulders for the way that he acted. Now, I've been in a toxic relationship, and it's a 50-50 thing. I'm not saying it's an equal 50-50 and that one person can't be as responsible as the other one, but what I'm saying here is she should never say that the full weight of responsibility is his, because just by writing the book in the first place, she must take responsibility for the fact that this is going to trigger negative emotions, especially from the person that she's written about. So that's the X, and that's the context in history. This was just a week before. It's also really important to mention that at the same time that this was going on, Liam Payne has also been dropped by his record company. I have no idea why. I am not going to speculate. But when you're already low, when you're in the grips of addiction and you lose your career, your ex-girlfriend is running you through the mill with the press, I think they are the first stages of what could be seen as a really serious mental breakdown. So moving forward to the current girlfriend, and again I need to go back to my notes, so she is Kate Cassidy. The current girlfriend is somebody that Liam lived in the United States with. Now here is where there is another twist in the story, because Liam's visa to be in the United States had expired. He did need to leave. So as he was in Argentina, he was then not allowed to go back to the United States. And this is a big thing in the story. It's not as if he could have gone back, because he couldn't. He didn't have the required visa or paperwork to be able to go back to the United States with Kate. So from what I can tell from all the information that's out there, they initially stayed in a bungalow, which was provided to them by a friend. And there's that very famous video of them sat at the breakfast table. Now, I found this a little bit disturbing from his point of view, because I found him a little bit condescending. The bit with the hat, and he's saying, "Oh, you leave a hat on the table. Kids, that's not nice. You don't do that." if you did that in private, that's one thing, but how many millions of followers does this man have? And he's saying that about his girlfriend in front of millions of followers. But that's just by the by. She didn't look impressed by his reaction. I wasn't impressed hearing it either. The next step from that is their time at the bungalow, for whatever reason, came to an end. They went to hotel number 1. I believe it's at this point that the information came out about the previous girlfriend, Maya. There appears to have been a big bust-up which has been witnessed by a lot of people. And at that point, Kate had none of her people around her. She had none of her protection for self-care and the people that cared about her the most. She was miles away from them. So she's decided to buy a ticket to go home. Liam, of course, can't go with her because his visa's expired and he's had to apply for a new one, which is done via the US Embassy in Argentina. So he's now stuck there in hotel number 1 on his own. So what happens in hotel number 1? Now, unfortunately, I believe this is where his behaviour really starts to spiral. In hotel number 1, he is asked to leave because he is now disrupting the other guests that are inside this hotel, which unfortunately goes on to be another theme at the next hotel that he goes on to, which is what I'm going to get on to next. So referring back to my notes, at hotel number 2, which is the hotel where he died, obviously he was witnessed by multiple people in the hours before he died. He was witnessed in the lobby. He was witnessed acting erratically. He was even witnessed falling flat on his face. He was witnessed standing by the elevators where he was inviting people and really desperately trying to seek attention, according to one eyewitness. Again, that's an eyewitness report, that's not me saying that he was stood there almost waiting to be recognised. He'd been at the front of the foyer earlier on in the day where he's taken some wonderful videos with some fans, and there's one where they've got the matching tattoos, and he's talking about having the same stomach tattoo which Liam himself actually designed and he did all of the artwork for, which again is a real insight into his life as a human being sooner than this media star, that he was, you know, artistic enough to be able to do that. So, you know, that was quite sweet, that was lovely, that was him interacting with people, but it did get a little bit darker later. Apparently, a lady called Rebecca and her friends were waiting for Liam to vacate a room so that they could actually have his room, but it had all gone slightly wrong. I believe earlier in the day he had hired 2 prostitutes and they had been up in his room with him, and again, I'm not speculating, that is fact. These ladies have been spoken to, and I know that Kate, the current girlfriend, is absolutely devastated by this turn of events, which anybody would be. So he's employed 2 sex workers. At this point, everybody believes that he is on drink or drugs or something that is badly interfering with his perception and, you know, his actual reality and how he's behaving. There is one instance where the girls won't get in the lift with him, but somebody else does. And as they're going up to his floor, he grabs somebody by the throat. I mean, that is not good behaviour. Even if it is just in jest, it's not nice. And it's really not what people want to witness firsthand. And then, of course, there's the whole thing where he comes back down to the lobby and he has his laptop. Again, eyewitness report of this Rebecca, who says that she has an uncle who's blind, so she knows that he was going through his emails and he had this speaker that was reading his emails for him, and she said it was as if he was after attention doing that. We'll never know whether he was or not, or whether or not it was just the way that he read his emails through this computer app that actually spoke his words to him. He obviously came across an email that he didn't like. His laptop was thrown, destroyed, whatever, damaged. Before he returned up to his room, there was clearly assistance from the hotel staff that took him from this foyer area up to his hotel room, and that was the last that anybody really saw of him alive, which is really, really tragic. And at this point, I want to say my biggest condolences to Liam's family, to his friends, to his fans, and also his son Bear. I have been affected by suicide personally, and I lost a friend 15 years ago, and it is the most devastating way to lose somebody. In a way, I don't see what happened to Liam as your classic suicide. I don't believe at this point he was in a low mood. I don't believe that he maybe even intended to end his life the way that he did. When you think of people that are depressed, they're usually somber, they're not high or agitated. I believe that this was just a mental breakdown that caused the end of his life, that triggered what happened to him. My thoughts on the balcony, I have unfortunately, the same as the rest of the world, I have seen the footage of Liam's dad, who was so brave, stood there with a companion on the balcony yesterday. This was witnessed by many people, and the balcony is actually quite a wide one. Had there been anybody else on there, it would have been seen. I don't believe he was pushed. I believe he either jumped or fell if he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Again, I wasn't there, but there were so many people who did witness it, and so I do draw the conclusion, just myself, that he was alone, and it was a manic state that led him over the edge, if not an unconscious state. Bless him. May he rest in peace. That it's just an awful way to go. Now, the legacy that's been left behind. I was truly horrified to turn on Twitter to see death photographs. Now, this is not the first time this has happened to me at all, and it still shocks me to my core. I never want to be in a position where I see the demise of somebody, the final pictures of them laying deceased. I think it's horrific, and the first person that uploads it to the world really ought to give their heads a massive wobble. It's awful. Back in the day in 1997, when internet was still a brand spanking new thing, we used to all have dial-up internet. That was the only way to get online back then. And I remember turning on my computer, and the first image to meet me was that of either a dying or a recently deceased Princess Diana still in a car in a tunnel in Paris, from where she'd passed away the night before. This is what I say to my own son on a very regular basis. You cannot ever unsee something. That image of that lady in that car all those years ago has haunted me ever since. And I cannot imagine what this image of this so well-loved young man laying deceased is going to do to a whole generation of young people. It's harrowing that it's out there. The fact that it is out there and the news outlets are sharing it, it's beyond words. This was such a well-loved person. I just can't imagine what's going through people's heads that allow that to happen. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, in the world of the media, no news is bad news, and all news brings it in, and the particular news outlets that are concerned, and the one app as well that is clearly showing pictures of the deceased body, the more people talk about it, the more that they're going to go viral. The more that people write about it, the more that people speak about it. So I'm not going to name any names. I'm just going to say how back in 1997, how deeply I was affected. And I hope that they can take responsibility for people's mental health, that this is a legacy that will live on for years to come in people that will not ever be able to unsee those particular images. Right. Finally, I just want to get on to the autopsy, so briefly. It did conclude that there were internal and external injuries that were caused by the fall. That cannot be disputed. So I hope that that maybe gives closure or peace to people that maybe thought that it might be something else. Obviously there's loads more to come out, toxicology reports, everything that needs to go on behind the scenes, but ultimately this young man did die from falling from that balcony. Now, this is the first time in a long time I have been seriously affected by a news event, as I'm sure everybody has around the world. I am not a 1D fan, but my background with this is that my son was born in 2010. At the Christmas when X Factor was on and he was a newborn baby, we used to put him on this beautiful little rug in front of the TV, and we used to turn the TV down so it didn't affect his ears. And we loved, absolutely loved watching the growth of these young men, knowing that we just brought our own young man into the world, watching them blossom from the men that they were, or boys that they were, I suppose, into the men that they become. I didn't actually follow One Direction at all when they were a band, but I must say I've got such wonderful, fond memories of back then when they first started. And for my small part in being a fan back then with the X Factor, I just want to say a huge thank you. I am truly devastated for everybody connected. Really devastated. Again, friends, family, fans, and of course, poor Bear. I've never done a news review like this before, where I've wanted to say my own feelings and put the truth out there after seeing so many false accounts of what's happened. But my background is the news, and so I do believe on this channel I am going to do a separate playlist where I do tackle news events, but only from the stance where I think people have got it wrong, I think it's misleading, or in this instance, there are just so many lies out there about what actually happened to this young man. So please stay tuned. We are a family-friendly vlogging YouTube channel. We only diarise what we do usually on a day-to-day basis, as well as having a look at World War II history in our local area. But majoritively, all you will see on here are horses, animals, fish, what we get up to, road tours, camping. We are a family-friendly station, which I hope that you will come back to and visit us. If you could like and subscribe, that would be amazing. Nothing that we do is usually this serious, but I do intend to do more, just purely getting the truth out there, and I will put that on a separate playlist at the top, which is going to be about news. Thank you so much for watching. If you've been affected by events that have happened over the past 4 days, please talk to somebody. Keeping it to yourself is absolutely no good at all. Talk to somebody, share what you're going through, and hopefully get the help as well that can help see you through it. All the very best. Bye bye.